yogi friends. This week we're going to focus on the 6th chakra, Ajna, also known as the third eye chakra, located, yes, center of the brow. I think I've talked about this before, but I think it's fascinating, so I'll talk about it again. The chakras grow progressively finer from a denser, grosser elements at the lower chakras to progressively finer and more subtle elements as we move upward. So it works with the body, like there's a huge amount of body for the first chakra, so the feet, the legs, and actually the tailbone. And then there's a big amount of body, of just body stuff you can do for many of the other chakras. When we get to the area of the third eye, it really just is the eyes. It's the eyes and the brain, though, and the mind, and the gland, because they each have a gland associated with them. So the gland here is the pituitary gland, also known as the master gland, which regulates the hormones of all the other glands. And I think that's a fascinating piece of information there too, because Ajna means master. And a lot of the emotional, the correspondence of Ajna chakra is its role, like the pituitary gland, in being the balance regulator of all the other chakras. An analogy I love to use for this is if you're tuning a guitar and you start at the low E string and then move progressively higher, you get to the sixth string, and it's another E. You balance it back. You'll actually play the high one, and you might go play the low one again to make sure they're all balanced all along the way. And that is this role of Ajna. We need all of the lower chakras balanced before we get up to 7th one, which we'll do next week. 5 ways to balance this one. And I talked about how things are growing progressively finer from this more dense, lots of body, and just a little bit of body, but also the elements, that each chakra has an element associated with it. And the first one was earth, which is matter. All of it. It's not just literally our planet or dirt, but it's all this material and different states of matter. It's all that's solid, right? That's the first chakra. The second chakra is water and liquid. That state of matter, the liquid, anything liquid and watery. It's a little bit subtler, a little bit finer. Third chakra is fire and plasma, right? And we're getting a little finer still. The fourth chakra is heart, but it's air, the element of air, where we're growing finer still, oxygen, the molecules of oxygen and breathing in air. Last week we talked about throat chakra being space or ether, and in fact being the space between molecules of air, finer still. But indeed we get finer still as we go up, because here at the 6th chakra, the element is mind. It's considered an element in ancient India. It's finer still, our mind stuff. We'll talk about what this is next week. But so the first way to, and going through this kind of emotional story, right, where we talked about each chakra's, when it gets too much, it needs to be balanced by bringing it up into the next one. So I had to do a little recap of last week, and how last week we were talking about throat chakra opening up, using that, getting out of the broken heart or the empty nest stuff by focusing on one's creativity and getting out there, expressing oneself. How can that be negative? What happens if we have too much of this energy, of the expression or the throat chakra communicating? Well, the dark side is the feeling alienated. Instead of connecting with your culture through your art and through your healing or your teaching or all these things that, the ways that we express, when you feel alienated, when you feel without connection at all, or even writer's block or artist block can be a symptom of the dark side of this. Like broken heart is the opposite of the heart. Right? It's the not being creative. It's feeling alienated or feeling outcast, feeling it might not even be in an artistic manner. It might be politically, socially feeling like the outcast, feeling unconnected, feeling like people don't get you. Your culture isn't your culture somehow. That's a problem for a lot of us. And feelings of being out of step and out of sync with your culture, like what I see in television and the media around me doesn't balance and nurture me. Those are signs of this throat chakra being out of whack, and we need to move it up to Ajna. So, we need a dog. For Ajna, really the best thing is to start a yoga practice, really. But I don't mean actually the poses. I mean a meditation, mindfulness practice. So start, and not for the benefits of it, but the work of it. So learning to do things, learning to concentrate. Breath exercises are very good. Learning to start to count your breath. There's all different, yoga has a huge range of different breathing exercises that can help develop our concentration. Pranayama, it often gets called. It's not a precisely correct term, but people use it. Pranayama means the control of energy. It doesn't actually mean breath exercises. And energy runs on the breath, but is not the same as breath. It just is carried on our breath. So if we control our breath, the thought is that you will then control your energy, and that usually is the case. So focus exercises. I would say the first thing is to develop a meditation or a mindfulness practice, and doing one that really does help hone the mind in. The mind's going out, spinning out of control is a symptom of being out of this chakra being imbalanced too, is when you can't concentrate or anything. And no wonder in our culture. It makes it very hard to concentrate when you have screaming LED lights in the city, and you've got your phone blipping at you at every second, and the cars are honking, and the lights are, it's all this. Everything is designed to send our senses outward and to keep us from feeling focused. So focusing is the first one, and practice with just like a simple technique of staring at a candle flame, or using a mantra, right? Using your breath as a thing to focus on. The second one is to improve your mind. So that was our first one, just plain concentrating. But the second one is to improve your mind in other ways. So read, learn, study, take a class, find a guru, find a teacher, be a teacher. Start to improve your mind with puzzles to keep your mind active and busy, so it doesn't, as we age, people talk about how not doing puzzles and not keeping the mind is what can lead to dementia or maybe other aging problems. So keeping our mind focused is a good one by learning things. Take a new class. Good one, right? Get out there and expand your horizons. That's my second one. The third one is a deeper sense of that same powers of the mind, but there's beautiful stuff in the sutras about what can happen when you really develop these forms of concentration that the mind's capable of. So these are fun ones too. Practice some of your intuitive arts. And I joked about yoga, but wasn't joking. But I also mean there's loads of interesting intuitive, or we call them the occult sciences. So things like astrology, Reiki is a really good one. Tarot is good. Studying ESP or psychic powers, and just in general though, the powers of intuition. And I think Reiki is actually beautiful for that too. And there's loads of intuitive, not so logic focused ways of really expanding the mind's powers to deepen our understanding of the world and its workings. That's our our third one. The 3 fun things, like to really get the mind in a new place, get it out of its rut. There are gemstones that are good for it as well. So the colors here, and this is where it gets a little. There's different schools of yoga and American versus, or contemporary versus ancient color associations. They're all a little different. Western culture likes to use a rainbow for the chakras, and I find a lot of value in that. So start red at the bottom of the prism, orange, yellow, green. But even still, in a rainbow, it's still a little arbitrary of where, is turquoise a color? And is orange red? Is that a color? Right? Where do these things? It's arbitrary where you divide up these different colors. So some systems have the color for Ajna as indigo. This was blue, indigo, then we get violet in that system. Another system, though, will go blue, violet, white for the crown chakra. And I think there's some value to both of those. So I would say for you, use your own intuition of which you're drawn to, purple or indigo. But stones then of either of those colors can be valuable, whichever's, again, resonating with you. And with stones, crystals, I really feel like it's extremely important that you go with your intuition when you decide you want to find one and use one in your life. You need to pick the one that's calling you. You actually create a relationship with a crystal. It's a being, I think. Now flake alert. But it may be a subject for another little video. But I do think our crystals are beings that we create relationship with, and I'll leave it that way. But so you want to use your intuition on which one wants to go home with you, and colors that are good, or stones that are good with that, is lapis lazuli. Is a beautiful indigo color. So that's the first one that comes to mind for me for Ajna. This deep, rich lapis lazuli stone. On the purple scale, amethyst is one of the most healing magic stones. It's got all kinds of healing and magic properties to it. It's very cleansing and can heighten powers of other stones. It's a beautiful purple color. It's also purple stones like tanzanite, and but if you're going to go for the blues, go for a rich, deep blue, or you can pick any of the purple colors. You can wear those kinds of colors. You can use third eye symbols. Actually, that's another thing. I'll just throw those in there. That often they have these beautiful, from Greek and Orthodox religions, have those evil eye ward-off symbols. I don't remember what they're called, but they're blue. If you've ever seen them, they're blue circles, glass usually, with an eye in them. And that kind of imagery can be very healing. To surround yourself with that, to focus literally on your third eye. So there's some symbolic things we can use to help clarify that. So I was debating about whether for my yoga pose to give you a breathing exercise today, because I really think they're so important, but I think maybe we'll save breathing exercises and do a separate segment on those, and I'll stick with my format of giving you a specific yoga pose to balance Ajna today. And I'm also sticking with my format of, when I do these things with you all, having them be really accessible poses that anybody can do. So you don't have to be a yogi, you don't have to be an athlete or anything. And Balasana, child's pose, is everybody's favorite. They may not admit it, right? But it's a pose that's a deeply relaxing pose that, and relaxing is really vital for accessing third eye. We need to relax the body and relax our minds. I didn't bring props with me, and actually, if I'm going to really make it accessible to everybody, I would suggest using props. There are some people who sore knees, if you've got bad hips, where having some pillows, blankets, or yoga blocks, but you don't even need them. Pillows or blankets work fine as props to help you if this pose isn't so accessible to you. Our big toes are together and our knees are apart, and we sink our hips back. And here's where, if your hips are not that flexible, or if your knees are bothering you, putting pillows or blankets, you don't have to get your hips all the way back on your heels. You can certainly get them back on a blanket pillows, right? We stretch our arms out. This actually makes some nice shoulder work too. And we're actually resting our third eye, the forehead, on the floor, if that's reachable for you. If your hips are up here, or if you're having trouble getting back, your head may not be reaching the floor. And then I'd like you to then use blankets, pillows, or yoga blocks, or books, or something, so that you are resting your head on something. That's how you're actually activating the third eye, is by resting your forehead on something, right? So when your arms are outstretched, you're stretching your shoulders. That makes it a little more active if you want to be doing that and getting a good shoulder stretch. If your shoulders get tired and you still want to do the pose, you don't have to have the shoulder stretch. You can have softer elbows. You could even put your arms at your sides. It's a nice option. Or that same, instead of, if your forehead doesn't reach the ground, or if it's just because it feels nice, you could put your hands under your forehead so they can rest on your hands too. But while you're here, you can actually give yourself a little massage of the brow. Here I'm doing it on my hands. And you can do it while you're on the block or the floor. But you can make some little tiny circles. You can circle one way and then the other way. And that stimulates that region of the body and helps the mind work faster, better. Helps bring your concentration in. Concentration is the hardest and the key element to this pose, is being able to focus, right? In this world with all its distractions. Keeping our single-pointed focus is a key to spiritual development. That's like the Patanjali in the Yoga Sutras, as I said, has a great deal to say about developing the power of concentration and focus. And that is the 6th chakra. That's Ajna for this week. Just to let you all know, if you're paying attention, that I'm going to be away a lot in June, and on my webpage I have my schedule, and I'm putting it on my Instagrams, and I'll put it on Facebook. But I am around twice this week for classes on Tuesday evening